Good morning, all iLive listeners. You're here with Coach Mike, and I have the opportunity here to connect with Jolie Gravesande, the owner of foreverfitbyjolie.com. She's well into Pilates, but she has an amazing journey. The great thing about today is that she's my first female on this show, so we definitely want to dive into some of her perspectives on everything. So, Jolie, how you doing today?
I'm great, thanks. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being on the show. So, you have an interesting background. It really spreads over how many years?
Let's see, since like 20 years? About
20 years, right?
yeah, about 20 years.
So
Time
how did it all start for you, Jolie? Like how did your passion for fitness start?
started from a young age. My dad just kind of like threw me into soccer from
Hmm.
like 8 years old. And then my passion just grew for like working out, being active, being in sports. So from there, going into high school and joining the soccer team there and track in elementary school, track in high school. And then I kind of just branched off on my own, just doing my own thing, like with training, running, jogging, going to the
Yeah.
gym.
What was the intensity of the training when you were playing soccer? How old were you at that time?
Oh, starting I was at 8, and it was intense because not only was I training with the team, my dad had
Mhm.
his own little soccer practice
So wait a sec.
outside of soccer.
Your dad was a coach?
Yeah, he was my coach.
Okay.
My brother and myself. So he wanted us to be the best of the best. So obviously he would find his own pylons and find the steepest hills in Scarborough. And yeah, so we had to do our own extra training on top of practice.
So how did that shape you? That I mean, he obviously set the foundation for your work ethic.
Mhm. Well, yeah, my dad is the type of person is like, if you want something, you have to work for it,
Hmm.
right? So he was wanting to make sure that we got that extra built up the endurance. And obviously your parents are going to see your weaknesses too, right? And
Hmm.
he's not going to call me up, but he'll see that, you know what, I could tell she needs to work on her endurance. She needs to work on her skill set. And
Hmm.
because he's also a soccer player, not professionally, but he also played soccer too. And he was on his
Hmm.
own men's league as well. So, you know, he would teach me and my brother and I other techniques and skill set on how passing drills and building up endurance.
So what was your nutrition like at home in that period of time?
It was pretty much your West Indian diet. So pretty much the staples always rice
Yes.
every dinner, you know, and then your regular breakfast. Like there was no kind of there was never really much junk food in the house. Like my parents, like they didn't deprive us of anything, but we ate a lot of home cooked meals, right?
Hmm.
So I don't ever remember being sick growing up. I mean,
Yeah.
always like your porridge, making sure you get your iron, you know, and typical West Indian, they always know what to eat to make sure that your bones are strong, your muscles are strong, you're never sick. Like I don't remember ever being sick,
Oh
right?
wow. So you came from soccer and obviously you branched off and I think you really fell in love with running.
Yes.
So what
Yeah.
happened there?
See, actually, I wouldn't say I was in love with running. It was because soccer is short, quick bursts. So I was like a
Yeah.
sprinter. I liked sprinting, but my endurance, it wasn't the greatest. I mean, I used to play indoor soccer, and that I
Mhm.
found was harder than outdoor for some reason. But so I used to sprint a lot, and then I don't know something. I think I just got together with a friend that kind of pushed me to say, you know what, we're gonna jog further because I was not a cross country runner and I
Mhm.
always kind of shied away from that.
Mhm.
So it was just a matter of just getting out there and kind of setting my goals. So I would like, okay, I'm going to run this block. And then I would push myself, okay, you know what? I'm going to go another stop sign and another stop sign until I eventually was able to build up that endurance to say, hey, I can do this, right?
What
And
made you like that over soccer? Like to, you know what I mean? Like that
well,
transition. What?
well, the thing is with soccer, it was kind of more so that I started working and
Hmm.
I just didn't have the time because with soccer, you have practices, you have tournaments, and soccer for women at the time or teenagers, young teens, young women,
Hmm.
it wasn't as big as it was now. Like
Mhm.
for my brother, he was going across the country. For women, I mean, I think the first I went was maybe Burlington. So it wasn't
Wow.
a big, it wasn't that big as a deal as for men.
Mhm.
So, and then I started working anyway, so I didn't have time to go to soccer practices, and plus I wasn't driving, right? So then you
Right.
have to rely on your coach or your father to take you to soccer games. So I kind of just stopped that after high school, and then getting into the running, right?
Mhm.
I don't know, I found that I started to really love running and just getting outdoors and just getting in that fresh air, and then seeing my endurance like just build and seeing my physique change and just
Mhm.
having more energy. Like I found with after a run, I felt I had way more energy than I did for the rest of the day. Cause I would always like run first thing in the morning, right? Do like a 10K.
Mhm.
I don't like hills, but I did the hills. And it just encourages you when you could see that, hey, I can accomplish something I never thought I could do. And you're just seeing how your body's changing, how your body's feeling. It just, you know what I mean? It encourages you to do something that you never thought you could do. And that's what happened for me.
So you obviously realize as you do different movements, you do different types of training, you get different results on how you see your body, right?
Hmm.
Um, Coming from a soccer training, more athletic, going into long distance running,
Mhm.
how did you see not only your body change, but your diet change at this point?
So then I realized I need to eat more because going from even being in college and never really a big breakfast person. So just
Hmm.
getting up and going to school, going to work, and not even eating anything until midday. With the running now, so by the time you finish running, you're depleted of all that water and every salt, just like famished, right? So
Hmm.
I knew I had to figure out something to balance this out if I'm going to run for 10K and then go to the gym. So I started incorporating shakes,
Okay.
so protein shakes. Because you see people, and I really was just going with the flow and not really doing the research at the time. So I was just
Hmm.
like thinking protein shakes, add that in after my run, to give me that energy, and it worked for a while. And it's just I found that some of the shakes just didn't digest well with me, so that's when I started really researching other alternatives and what worked best for me and health wise. What are the good shakes what are the shakes to shy away from, and what shakes to incorporate. So I tried to stay with the more natural ones now.
Yeah, because like that's another discussion too, but I'm going to dive into it a little bit. Like you have people who are on the natural side, no supplementation, get everything from foods, things like that. And
Mhm.
then others feel that, that supplementation just gives me that extra push. It's motivating and I could feel the difference. What are your thoughts on, you know, protein supplementation, anything that's not natural going into your body? What are your thoughts?
See, I'm a big believer in more natural things. So for me, and plus I don't eat meat as well. And
Okay.
I just found with the shakes and things that had a lot of chemicals in it and creatine, I didn't digest well. I was bloated all the time, um, gas release, and it was just like uncomfortable. I just knew something wasn't right until I
Hmm.
started reading the labels too, and
Hmm.
then reading what they contained and the best route to go. And I always believe that natural is always the best route when you're incorporating, if you want to be healthy. Because what's the point of me trying to run and be healthy, and then I'm taking in chemicals into my body, right?
Right.
And if you don't feel well, something is kind of telling you that it's not working, right?
Hmm.
So not only was I just taking the shakes, and then I started supplementing with getting my protein, getting like eating raw nuts or almonds, walnuts,
Hmm.
on top of fruits and stuff like that, right? To give me that filling sensation, and also give me like protein and stuff that I needed.
Hmm. So when did you get introduced to the rehab part of your life, which has obviously played a huge part of your life? But
Mhm.
when did that start, and when did you incorporate that? And oh, you know what I want to ask you? Did you go to the gym at the same time while you were doing the long distance running?
Because I was living in a condo at the time, so I was going to the gym in the condo. I didn't have a gym membership. I didn't have the gym membership for the longest time, so I was either working out the gym at work, in the condo and at school. at
Okay.
I was in college, the first program. So I
How
left.
did you like that look?
I
That
loved
must be a nice look, right? The long distance and the weight training. I mean, you're
you know,
shredding and you're building muscle fibers. I mean, what was that like?
it was a change for me because I mean I went from like that smooth, soft look to like, wow, I got muscles. Like, you know what I mean? It's just like when you start seeing your body changing in a positive way and you're like seeing your physique and you can start to wear clothes that you like and things that when I was younger, I always like shied away from. I was just like,
Yeah.
damn, yeah, this is working for me.
Now, while you're running and you're in the gym, what kind of set counts are you doing? Are you doing like, 3, 4 sets per muscle? You working the whole body? Because you're running at the same time. So people have to consider your whole gym program has to be altered so you could at least recover.
Yes, yeah. When I started running, I really, to be honest, I
Hmm.
really didn't know what I was doing at the time. I was just running
Hmm.
and I was going to the gym and just pretty much working legs, working the full body at the time when I just started. I had no
Right.
clue really on training and sets like that. So I basically would just do, knowing that I'm running, I knew I had to keep my legs strong, right?
Right.
And I had doing core, incorporating core, arms, back. So pretty much a full body, or I would do, okay, legs to lower extremity today, upper extremity today, seeing how I felt, right?
Okay.
Um, when, oh, and I started doing the 10K runs too when I was, so I started school for rehab in 2000. That's when I actually went into the physiotherapy and occupational therapy program. So that's when I
Wow.
actually got into, this is what I
What made you decide to go into that?
it was just like I knew I loved working with the body. I liked working with sports and stuff like that. So I figured, you know what? You always hear people that get injured, they're going to for physiotherapy, right? So then
Hmm.
I started to delve into what is physiotherapy. I looked at the fact that it's an occupation that's always going to be on demand, right?
Right.
Plus, on top of the fact that it's something that I love doing anyways, right? I like it's something that involves sports and fitness and recovering and working with the body. And as you start to work with the body and learn about the body in school, I was just getting fascinated in how the whole body's connected and how it works together and how, the body's really just how it's just, you know what I mean? It's just like
Yeah. What
really,
kind of what kind of common injuries do you see come your way as far as the clients go?
so in the hospital, I see everything. I
Hmm.
work on a trauma floor. So starting off, I would see your basic ortho elective hip and knee patients. So those are patients that will book their knee replacement. So those are
Right.
elective surgery, and then trauma. So trauma could be anywhere from a fall, so fractures. So I would see like hip fractures, back, neck, MVA accidents. So those are car collisions on the highway or just car accidents, and then burns. So it's a trauma burns ortho floor. So I see pretty much everything coming out of acute care. So then
Jeez.
because I work in rehab, so everything, so once they're stable, because the hospital I work at, it doesn't have an emergency. So the patients have to be stable and then they're ready. They come here to inpatient rehab. And that's where I work with them with a team of physiotherapists and occupational therapists to help get you back to function before
Hmm.
you go off to outpatients. So my role now is in occupational therapy, working with upper extremity, fine motor skills, and then physiotherapy, working with your mainly lower extremity. So I would do teaching you gait training, which is teaching you with different mobility aids as so cane, walker, crutches, bed exercises and,
Hmm.
and parallel. So I can work with you saying if you have, depending on your injury. So some patients I see could be non-weight bearing on one leg,
Yes.
or so I'm basically going to work with you to help get you to your goals to be discharged home. So,
What's the timeline like
so
on a
every,
lot of these clients?
let's see, your typical ortho patient is 10 days post-op. So that
Hmm.
means 10 days from surgery, right? You're basically working on getting their range of motion back. trauma patients could be anywhere from, it could be a month, 2 months. It's basically dependent on their injury, how intense their injury is. So
Right.
let's just say, for example, if you just came and you were non-weight bearing on one leg, right? But then I could teach you crutches. Say you're young, you're active, you're strong, you're motivated to get better and get home. And your only limitation is now, I need to learn crutches, or I need to learn how to get up and down my stairs to get it in and out of my house safely. So that's a simple, not really simple fix. It's just dependent on how quick and how safe, you are. So then my role would be working with the physiotherapist with their program and working with you to teach you how to use your crutches safely, get in and out, and be independent, that you can go home. So it all depends on how the severity of the injury.
Exactly. So like, if someone is in rehab, how would they be able to say, if someone was on a timeline, they want to recover? I mean, they just want to recover, but they want to recover as soon as possible. Say it's an athlete or it's whatever it is. Is there things that they can do to recover faster?
Okay. Um,
Not really.
I mean, I feel from my experience, your motivation, your mindset plays a big role in your recovery,
Right.
right? If you are motivated to go home and that's your kind of, you're really, I'm set. What do I have to do? I have to go to therapy. And then also we're going to give you exercises that you can do in your bed, right? So work your core, whatever you can do in your bed independently. So if you are independent, walking on your own in the hallway. So you might see patients who are like up walking during the day, doing their exercise in a room, along with coming to their therapy gym time, they will get better faster, right? Because, right? So that's for if you're in hospital, you're talking about, right?
Yeah. So now you got into Pilates. Did you take anything from this area of your life and apply it to your new journey in the Pilates?
Yeah, because even with my full-time job, the Pilates is something that, this is why I love Pilates so much. Pilates is something we all do without even thinking about it, right? For me, even just telling you to, hey, Mike, sit up tall when you're walking, don't slouch, bring your shoulders back, be more aware of your body in space as you walk. So just proprioception, that's Pilates, right?
Right.
And right, you going to the gym and realizing that you have some kind of imbalances in your body and you're working on strengthening and realigning, stretching, that's Pilates. So that's why I tell people, I'm like, it's for everybody, man, woman, child, doesn't matter your age, because you can modify it to anyone's fitness level, and it's for everybody. Like, even though people think that, a lot of men think it's just a female thing, exercise,
Yeah.
it's something we incorporate in our habitual lives. Like, it's
What's the
something new.
what's the focus of Pilates? Like, what is Pilates for people that are just, chiming in?
Pilates is basically rebalancing the natural curves of your spine. So we have the natural curves of our spine. Not everybody looks like the anatomy model, right?
Right.
So basically what we're trying to do is we're trying to get you back to function and trying to help you realign, balance, strengthen the muscles to help protect your joints. As we get older, we want to or some people, their bone density decreases, osteoporosis, rheumatoid arthritis in the joints. So that's another thing. So Pilates doesn't even require any equipment. If you're just doing your basic mat, just going back to basic Joseph Pilates mat, that's all you need, basic your mat and your body weight. And you can get results, and it's your whole body is being worked all the time. So even though you might be working your arms or whatever, you're still stabilizing your other extremities, core to help. So we always think the powerhouse. When we're talking about Pilates, you always hear the powerhouse. And where the teaching I did through STOTS, we go through the fundamentals of the 5 basic principles. And that's what we carry through all the exercises, your breathing principles, your rib cage, your shoulder blades, how they're set, and how to how your abdominals are connected to everything. So not allowing your ribs to pop when you're walking and your shoulders hiking. So it's just it's mindful movement exercises is how I would explain it. It's mindful movement exercise and helping to rebalance the body.
Now,
Getting
Jolie,
back.
why did you get started into Pilates?
It was by fluke, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
I saw it in one of those fitness magazines, and I was like basically obsessed with core and
Mm-hmm.
getting my core strong. And I saw, oh, Pilates, and it wasn't real. I was like, what is Pilates? And I started doing the exercises, and I started getting asked by people.
What are some of the exercises? What are some of the,
Some dancers that you would hear like the ab prep, which is
Mm-hmm.
kind of like similar to your crunch, but not your full crunch. It's kind
Mm-hmm.
of isolating the abdominals. So those are on your back. So we call that supine. So we always think of your pelvic placement on imprinting to connect more with your protecting your back. So you always talk about the deeper stabilizers, your transverse, your obliques, on top of talking about the six pack that everyone knows about. They don't also know about your pelvic floor and then the transverse and obliques. So we talk about the deeper muscles, and that's what we always incorporate with our Pilates exercises.
So it's a lot of breathing, right? It's a lot of technique on breathing. How important is the breathing technique in Pilates?
Breathing is huge, not even
Mm-hmm.
just Pilates, just in everyday life, to fully oxygenate the blood, fully empty the lungs. You were talking about posterior breathing, so opening up the lower lobes of the lungs,
Mm-hmm.
oxygenating the blood cells, giving you more energy. Thinking of your breathing also helping to relax, and thinking of where your body's moving in space, whether
Mm-hmm.
you're moving into flexion or extension. So it's huge. It's not just a Pilates-based thing. It's a live, that's just being healthy. You want to learn how to correctly breathe. And that's what we always teach. Like I reinforce, even with patients, always reinforce breathing correctly in through your nose, fully expelling that air out.
That's what I was going to ask you. Which breathing technique should people be focusing on?
Yeah, so you want to focus on posterior breathing. So how the diaphragm opens and closes, right? And thinking of, we try to use the breath on how our body anatomically moves. So using inhale as we lengthen and exhaling as we go into flexion. So you're inhaling, it's closing in, exhaling, it's expanding out. So I kind of like to use different illusions, like saying like not umbrella, sorry, an accordion expanding, closing, or a balloon. So they kind of have that visual when I'm teaching a client or teaching a patient on how you want to feel that breath, or just even putting your hands on the sides of your rib cage would help to cue somebody that doesn't understand where the breath should be coming from. So it's very important. And I always try to tell people the breathing is very important, because you want to avoid breathing upper here overworking accessory muscles. And that's why sometimes people get headaches or things like that, not even being aware that where they're overusing these upper traps, or belly breathing. And they're allowing their abs to be exposed, and that's where injury could happen in your back. So say for instance, you're at a gym and you're lifting, you're not breathing correctly, and you're a belly breather. So now you're allowing your abs just to be relaxed, and now you have no protection for your back. So that's where you could pull your lumbar spine, right?
Which muscles are you guys really focusing on in Pilates?
All depends on the exercise. We're always thinking core. So we're always thinking for exercises in your open kinetic chain. So say for instance, I'm on my back with my legs doing something in the air. So there's not fixed or not pushing against something. So that's where, if your abdominals are not strong, I would always tell people, you want to imprint. So you want to connect more with your deeper stabilizers.
Okay.
Right? Because that's more going to give you support around your lower back. So you want to think of like your transversus, and people don't realize, a lot of people, when I talk to them, that your abdomen, it wraps right around. It's not just here. Like it wraps right around, and that's what we want to protect.
How long does it take to kind of grasp these techniques? Because it seems like you would probably need some coaching, or maybe someone to really train you to really perfect it. How long does it get to the point where you're independent?
It's always best to work with, do privates first,
Mhm.
right? And it's hard to say because some people pick up things very quickly and some people need that cueing because they don't understand or they don't feel it right away, right? They don't feel, they're just like the mind and body is not connecting right away, where some people you can teach them twice and they get it.
Mhm.
So it's hard to say exactly how long, but I always recommend that you do a few privates because with a private session, you're getting that one-on-one. You're allowed
Mhm.
to ask questions because I feel some people might be intimidated if they're in a group session. If they don't really understand what they're doing, they just kind of go along with the flow and that's where you can get injured. Whereas if you have your personal trainer or your
Mhm.
private instructor, they can actually be right there with you and make sure that you understand and you're more willing to say, no, I don't get it, or can you show me again a few times, and you're more comfortable asking and going through it as many times as possible. Because for me, if you don't understand the 5 basic principles, I won't go on. I won't go further into more exercises
Right.
because it's really important that you understand the fundamentals before we start going into more advanced exercises, right? Because
Mhm.
what's the point if you don't get the basics and then I'm teaching you advanced or intermediate level exercises. So it's always important with anything, right? Even in the
Mhm.
gym, you want to teach the fundamentals of what to do. So instead of giving a person 10 pounds, you're going to start off even with a 2 pounder and make sure they have the technique down properly before you would increase the weight or reps. Kind
Exactly. So say if someone comes to you
of. Mhm.
and we have a scenario where the person is, I would say, 25 pounds overweight. They've suffered some injuries, say knee and lower back, um, but they want to incorporate the gym and you. They want to incorporate. Do you? What is your recommendations? What are some of your sessions like in that subject as far as utilizing different areas of fitness?
I a lot of because the thing is, if their goal is first, you're going to work with their goal. So, what's your goal? If your goal is I want to lose weight and get strong, and so I always say, yeah, go when you go to the gym to the cardio,
Mhm.
right? So if they're going to get more cardio, whatever they're doing at the gym. So with the Pilates, I can modify it too. So if you come in, you say my legs are killing because I had a crazy leg workout. I could do something else with you. Core is always essential. We're always going to do core. We might focus on a different body part. So back, working on your back, your posterior chain, working your arms because you just worked the legs. It might still incorporate a little bit of legs, but not totally, focus on that. I might focus on another body part.
Mhm.
So yeah, so I always tell people, and like if you go to the gym, it's great that you incorporate both because now you go to the gym and you do your cardio or whatever, but now we're going to stay and focus more isolated, working on stabilization. So you can take the techniques you're learning in Pilates with you to the gym. You know what I mean?
It must be so helpful that you come from that the rehab background, because I'm just thinking when you have an injured patient with you or a client, you're able to take them even further earlier in their journey instead of them being at home or maybe just wondering what they need to do. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, for sure. And that's what I try to always let people know that, don't be fearful that you don't understand Pilates if you had surgery or because I understand. So now I really have the education and the experience now. So because I have a lot of clients I've worked with in Pilates that come to the studio that have knee issues or back or hip because they have hip replacement or knee. So yeah, that's my specialty. So now I feel comfortable and they also feel comfortable because now they understand, hey, Joel, you know what? Joel knows that I had a hip replacement, so she can modify the exercises to suit me, right?
Yeah.
Because, there's always the cookie cutter, but now that, right? So now I know that, you know what? You can't kneel. Kneeling is not something that's good for you, but I
Mhm.
can still find another exercise that will reap the same benefits without kneeling. We can do it in standing, or we could do it lying on your back, or I could always modify it, right? Now that I know that you had a hip replacement or a knee replacement, or you're recovering from a back injury, or whatever it is, you have limitation and range from sports injury from back in the day. So now everybody's different, right? So I don't have a typical, this is the routine we're going to do for everybody.
Exactly.
It's basically looking at you and you telling me, working with your goals first and foremost, and then also looking at you and you telling me that you're recovering from this injury from last year, sports injury. Say you pulled Achilles or pulled rotator cuff muscle. So now I know, hey, we're going to work on strengthening, right? I'm going to show you techniques. I'm going to show you different exercises that you can continually work on to help stabilize, right? Because
Right.
not everybody knows what to do and how to move their body correctly, even with just your regular daily routines and working, right? So a lot
Yeah.
of people that are working from home now that might be
Mhm.
on the computer all day, I'm just like, yeah, we have to work on upper, just because you might be like stiff. And you always hear right now, a lot of people are complaining of neck, right? Neck tightness, wrist injury from always keyboard, so carpal tunnel, bursitis in the elbow. So yeah, I just kind of like work with everyone differently, right? And just depending on what you have or what your occupation is.
It seems like you're educating a lot of people all the time.
Yeah.
But what are your thoughts on, mental training? You touched on it a bit. It's not talked about enough
Mhm.
when people are talking about fitness and health. How do you find how much time do you spend motivating and inspiring a lot of your clients to keep moving forward with the journey?
Um, every time I work with a patient, I feel like I'm motivating them,
Mm,
right? Because when you're not at 100%, regardless, even me and yourself, you're just like, you just kind of need that push and someone to remind you of where you were last week,
right.
right? So if I'm working with you, I'm always like reminding you or encouraging you and just like, remember last week we did 5 reps or you weren't able to do that. Without even telling you, I gave you a more advanced move and you didn't even realize I didn't say anything and you were able to do it.
So when you show people their progression,
Mhm.
what's the feedback like?
Oh, they're like, some of them are really shocked or they're like, really? Or they're just like, or their feedback is great. You're like, yeah, I do feel stronger. It didn't trigger, like it didn't make sense until you actually said something, right?
Mhm.
So it's always positive when I tell people that, hey, you weren't able to do that last week, or I just gave you a more advanced exercise without even saying anything, you were able to do it. So that means that, you know what? Your core is getting stronger or your breathing techniques better, or I noticed that your form, without even me saying, you're able to correct your form without even telling you, right? So that's why every session is always like, I'm always educating or always encouraging you, or even if you don't even need to encourage, it's just like, that was great. That was a great session. I didn't have to spend as much time teaching you today. You just got it, right? Because the way I teach is that I don't teach a new thing every time. I want to make
Right.
sure that you have the foundation. So if I do one session with you, I might do the exact same session with you the next time, right?
I feel like people are missing out on the proper belief they need to get through certain injuries and get through, like, weight challenges or even
Hmm.
performance challenges.
Especially younger folks, everyone wants the quick results, right? I find with the younger clients I have, male and female, they're like, when am
What are
I
the younger clients like?
Oh, they're just like, when am I gonna get better? When am I gonna start moving? And I'm like, your body is not a car. We don't just like throw in parts and then boom, everything is connected. So your swelling needs to be come down, or things start to like, or why am I feeling the sensation? I'm like, because your nerves are, the
What
muscle.
are what are some of the common injuries you're seeing from the younger clients you got?
So in Pilates or in my full-time job?
Both.
In both? Okay, so in younger clients and summer, so we have the summer injuries.
Hmm.
That's, so you have your motorcycle accidents, right?
Hmm.
We have our typical motorcycles in the summer, or we have the cherry pickers that go climb on ladders to pick fruits.
All
or
those,
yeah, so that was like a common thing every summer, you know, someone's climbing on a ladder, or you have in the winter, you have the people that climb up to put Christmas lights up, right?
mm,
So those are the winter accidents from winter injuries or snowmobile accidents. Or so the younger ones you'll see like in the summertime, you'll have, like I said, the motorcycles, car accidents.
I
Some,
can't believe enough people are falling off picking apples
oh yeah.
to create a category.
Oh, I could spend all day telling you stories.
I can't believe that. So
Yes.
what kind? So they fall off. They trying to pick apples. So they're injuring their hips. I'm assuming
Yes, yeah,
knees,
so hip
hips,
fractures or a lot of roofers,
roofers. Yeah, for
a
sure.
lot
Yeah,
of young guys, roofers, right? So maybe not wearing proper gear or practicing proper, I don't know, safety protocol.
bad
And
luck.
right, because they've been doing it their whole life and they just feel like, hey, just take a shortcut.
Mm,
And then, so you have like, so we'll have patients that come in with the whole pelvic fixator. So it's pretty much like rods, bolts. They're a little bit smaller now. So imagine a big rod keeping your pelvis in place until it's fully connected where they can remove it. So we have like a lot of pelvic injuries. So horseback riders, we had a
yeah.
lot of those too in the summer. So that, again, pelvic injuries, right?
What's the worst situation you've ever seen?
Uh, I think I would say burns by far are probably the worst. Burns by
Okay.
far, because it's a lot of it's tightness in the skins, constantly having to stretch it back because the skin's like an elastic, right? So you stretch it, you might spend half an hour a patient stretching, and then next day they're just back as tight. But other than burns, I would say the fractures are really hard, because the thing is, you can't really do much to progress, like to fast speed up bone healing, right? Some
Right.
people, their bones grow very fast, and some patients, they go back to fracture clinic and there's still another 3 weeks non-weight bearing, right? For some reason, they might need a bone stimulator, or,
Right.
so also, again, it's nutrition as well. So I always educate patients, again, those smokers, you want to stop smoking if you can, because as
Mhm.
you know, smoking is not the greatest for getting the blood supply, right?
Okay.
You're not, so
What are your thoughts on rehabbing the knee? And based on your clients, and what are some of your recommendations? And talk about some of the injuries that are common to what you've been seeing.
So for knees, the main thing is, now there's not much around the knee, right? So you have your ligaments, your ACL, PCL, MCL. Other than that, and then you have cartilage. So if that's gone from some injury, sometimes people have very limited, like little left.
Hmm.
It's basically strengthening the muscles around the knee. So now you're working on strengthening your quads, your hamstrings, your calf muscles, your gastrocnemius, your peroneals, the
All
muscles
those.
around to help give it the stability it needs.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right. So that's what I always, even if you're not injured, you have no injuries, I always say, if you're a soccer player, I'm like, or whatever sport it is, I'm like, you know what, you want to definitely make sure you strengthen the muscles around the joint, the knee especially, right? Because just a slip, right, it could just tear
Hmm.
or ligament. So it's basically, you always want to think of strengthening muscles around, giving it that support. Because if you have strong quads, you have strong hamstrings, it's giving it the support it needs, basically.
And I'm sure you probably walk your clients through the types of exercises based on it was post surgery. What are your thoughts on, there's a lot of athletes that have a slight tear in a ligament or something like that, and they get mixed messages from the doctors, where some doctors will say, you'll be fine, you don't need surgery, and some will say you need surgery. What are your thoughts on that? Because I know you must see a lot of that where you're in your field.
It's, yeah, well, that basically we have to work with what the surgeon tells. They'll go in for, say, their exam, and they'll do maybe, what's it called, an MRI, to see
Hmm.
more detail what's going on. So some doctors, yeah, they're just like, you know what, go for surgery. and or if you can live without the surgery, you got to be very careful. So it all depends, right? It's hard for me to say, but basically, if you tear something and you really need the surgery, it's something you just have to,
yeah.
it's hard to say. It's kind of like, if you need it, right? And depending on your age, if you're a young 30, 40, 50-year-old, it's like, it's their quality of life, right?
Yeah.
You can say, I don't want surgery, and then you might end up overusing you start seeing them in the hip, because then you're starting to limp and everything travels up from the ankles up. So then you're like pretty much overworking the rest of your body to compensate for that knee that you just kind of like delaying having surgery on.
I always promote surgery. I always say, get the surgery, because then you could start the full rehab after. Whereas you're always constantly rehabbing yourself for some reason when you don't get that surgery. So nutrition, what is Jolie eating these days? How do you stay in such great shape? Tell all our listeners what the secret is and what you're doing.
Well, I don't eat meat. So I am considered a pescatarian. So I try to eat as natural as possible. I'm not saying that I'm a really super healthy eater. Like, I do have the things I'll binge here and there, but then I know I have to get back on track, right?
Yeah.
So for me, I try to drink as much water as possible. So everyone makes fun of me of my big bottle. They call it my oxygen tank.
Stay hydrated. Stay hydrated.
I try to get as much water as I can during the day. I try to limit, I don't drink pop. Pop is something like rare, and I don't know. I hardly drink pop. I don't drink alcohol.
So you stay away from sugar then, more or less? You stay fully away from sugar? Yeah.
Yes. I try to stay away from sugar as much as possible. I try to get my sugar in through natural sources like fruits and dates. Yeah, and like I mentioned to you before, I like to read the labels, because sometimes you think by just reading the front of something, a cover of a box, you might not get the true information until you flip it over and you see all the different glucose and oses and
all these different sugar. What about salts? You stay away from salt as well?
Yes, because too, I know how my body reacts to it. So I definitely will stay away from things high in sodium. Like, for instance, like a lot of salad dressings or soup spots in the restaurants or the cafeteria. They might taste okay, but they're loaded in sodium, and you don't even realize they might have 2,000 milligrams in that bowl of soup that you had, right? Or different, like pho or whatever. They're really high in sodium, and then it could cause bloating and a lot of water retention too in the body if you're not flushing it out with enough water. So I try to stay away from that. And I love fruits. So especially in the summer when it's out, I will feast on fruits.
So many benefits of fruits.
And then I also, for myself, I have to watch my iron levels.
How come?
Yeah. So for me, I try to eat a lot of chickpeas and beans. Then my vegetable plantain and yams, stuff like that, to give me that iron.
You're a little bit low in iron?
Yeah, just for me, it's just to have the sickle cell trait. So for me, I have to watch them. I'm susceptible to getting anemia. So I noticed that I could tell when my iron's going a little bit low, like I'm like a little bit more tired than usual. I just feel like just not myself.
When what are the best foods for you to start to prepare once you start losing a lot of energy? We usually dive into.
I like to have a lot of greens. So
greens,
I like kale, spinach, kale, a lot of greens, and I actually like it. I really actually like. I like greens, and I never look. Because the thing is, I never liked this stuff when I was younger. As a kid, I just like secretly flush it down the toilet. But
you know the benefits now. You know the benefits of these foods, right? That's
feed it to the dog downstairs. But now, as an adult, and actually know if I know something is good for me, I will eat it. Not other than tomato juice, I will eat it if I know it's good for me. If I know the benefits of it, and I just like it. I don't know if it's a mental thing, but Yeah.
How many meals are you eating a day? And are you preparing your meals? What kinds of foods are you eating? I mean, in your meals?
So I try to have at least 3 meals a day. I'm not a big meal person, to be
Hmm.
honest. I like snacks. So I'll have at least about 3. So I'll have my breakfast, so maybe a shake. I like to have my shake in the morning. So I'll add almond milk to it with fruits and
Hmm.
with protein. My Vega protein, which is stemmed from like a lot of plant-based protein. So that's what it is. And then
Hmm.
with almond milk and fruits to give it some substance. And I'll have
Yeah.
that for breakfast. I like to throw in some fruits. So say some clementines, an orange, an apple, something like that to
Hmm.
munch on when I have like a break. And then lunch, I'll have, I don't know, maybe a salad or something else with it, or chickpeas or something like that. And then dinner, some form like salmon. Say, for instance, I'll have like salmon with a salad and vegetables on the side or something like that, steamed vegetables for dinner.
Now, are you incorporating weight training right now? What's your training like? Because I mean, it's a lot of food. It's a lot of nutritious food, but I know it's backed up with a serious training program. What are you doing right now for your training?
Right now, I'm basically just doing Pilates, to be honest, with my
Just the
clients.
Pilates?
Yeah,
Okay.
with my client, and and I'll do cardio. I have a treadmill. I've been trying to get outdoors now that the weather's getting better.
Hmm.
So I loved walking. So I like doing walking trails. That's when I'm outside, but indoors now. Now that I'm teaching a lot of virtual with my clients, I'm actually working out with them. So I'm finding getting my good exercise there with them. And then I incorporate different small equipment. So the TheraBand is like my weights, is my resistance training
Okay.
along with my body. So using bands and a a toning ball, stuff like that.
What are your thoughts on band training? Because I'm a huge fan of band training for my own personal reasons. What are your thoughts?
I love the bands, and I tell people, and the other reason why I love them too is that you can take it anywhere with you, and you can
Hmm.
work any body part. Like you can simulate a lot of exercises you do in the gym with the bands. Some people
Hmm.
don't like them, and and then the bands come in different resistances. So you can do your back, you can do upper extremity, lower extremity, same exercise you do in the gym with weights, you can use the band. And you might also be able to stabilize better, I find, stabilize better with the bands.
Hmm.
And you could be more creative with the bands. You could do two upper and lower extremity at the same time with
Oh,
it.
for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, that you can't do at the gym with weights, which is why I love it.
Do you incorporate the bands with your Pilates as well?
Oh yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
Okay.
For
Yeah.
sure. If anyone that works out with me knows I love toys. So I'm all about throwing in things here and there and just like, yeah, let's grab the band, let's do this, let's work upper. So you want to just intensify the upper, say doing push-ups or something like that, adding the resistance with the band just to make it a little bit more challenging. Especially if I notice that, hey, you're doing that with like not much effort. Let's just up the ante here and just throw in some band resistance here,
And I'm
right?
sure you use the stability ball too a lot.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
I use everything.
Yeah. I know the stability ball is so amazing for core development if you use it right.
Oh yeah, trust me. I even challenged myself tonight.
Oh yeah. What did you do?
Yeah, we're doing the legs. And
Hmm.
I was like, okay, let's take the weight because the client was having wrist issues. So I was like, okay, let's put our forearms on the ball and kind of like the 4-point kneeling bird dog. So you had the hands on the ball, was moving the legs and just trying to keep your upper extremity form on the ball. I was like, oh my God, I'm really using my core now to stabilize, right?
So
Because the
you're helping the client use their core to for the because of the weak
core,
wrist, right? So
yeah.
how do you build stability muscles near the wrist?
Well, so the wrists now, so I'll use so say your forearms, or for instance, or I'll do exercises just, oh, no, number one, I always show how to support the wrist,
Hmm.
right? Because I see a lot of floppy wrists with exercise, people doing it incorrectly. So that's why I always kind of cue is keeping neutral through the wrist. You're not breaking in the joint, first and foremost. and then we do the exercise. Because if
Mhm.
you're doing this, or you see that hyperextension in the wrist, that's where some of the injuries even come from, right? It's just some people have some people have really hyperflex mobile joints
Are they
too.
coming from keyboard issues?
No, it could just be just your body
Oh,
too, right?
okay.
Some people, yeah, some people have that from that. That's where you get a carpal tunnel, like, right? Or just, but yeah, it's like, it's all about cueing and just inform and for everything, you're just always looking at everything. So whatever exercise is always being careful to how to support yourself,
Mhm.
where your wrist should be, where your elbow and your shoulder, you're staying open through the chest, so you're not rounding in. So it's a lot of yeah,
Now,
it's
have you have you
mindful movement.
yeah, have you suffered from any injuries, Jolie?
Yeah, I
Major injuries?
not major, but I
Yeah.
had, so I wouldn't say well, I had umbilical surgery. So I had a hernia. I don't know
Hmm.
how I got it, but
Oh,
I had that surgery, and that's where I'm glad I was already a Pilates instructor at the time. So I knew the techniques on how to rebuild and how to strengthen my core after
okay.
the surgery. So that was my first major surgery. And then recently, within, I would say maybe 2 or 3 years ago, I had my first ankle sprain. And it's
Okay.
funny because I'd never had any injuries playing sports.
Right.
And I was just a fluke exercise I did at the gym, doing a calisthenics exercise with a trainer where I just jumped the wrong way and
Hmm.
sprained my ankle. And then I sprained the other ankle at work by just slipping on your typical, cartoon characters, things you
Oh
just
no.
slip on a banana. I literally slipped on a banana peel.
Are you running any at all right now?
I run a little bit. I'm kind of testing the waters on how my ankle is on the treadmill. I haven't run outside since
Hmm.
last year, which I really want to try and see how it feels.
What's your rehab process right now for your ankle? What's your plan?
Stretching was what I was told. My peroneals are really tight, and that's the reason why I even sprained my ankle to begin with.
Mm.
So right now I'm working on a lot of trying to mobilize my ankle and stretching. That's my kind of my rehab. So I've been doing a lot of unilateral exercises. So kind of like balancing,
Hmm.
standing on one leg, standing on unsupportive different surfaces, trying to just strengthen the ankle.
Would you
Along
use the
with,
Bosu ball?
I don't have one. So I
Mm.
have, what are they called? They're called the stability cushion. I don't know if you've ever seen
Okay.
them. They look like a flat
No, I
donut,
haven't seen that one. No.
and they're kind of used like it's like a flat donut, and it's unstable. So standing on that, it's a great strengthening for the ankle, just one leg. And I also tell a lot of clients or athletes that have any kind of knee or ankle, because just standing on your one foot and just
Hmm.
working on how to make sure that you're putting pressure through your whole foot. Because most people, even if you just look at the bottom of your shoe, you can
Hmm.
tell how you walk. Some people tend to supinate or pronate, and you could tell by the way their shoe wears. So you have the people that walk on the outside of their foot, or people that walk on the inside of their foot, or toe in. And that's a huge detector in how your gait is and how you're walking. And that could play a huge part in why your knee might be torqued, or why your knee might be susceptible to knee injuries. And then the knee travels to the hip. So if you have a knee injury now, you might be taking more pressure into hip. So then you have people that are unbalanced in their hip. And that's another thing with the Pilates, like by doing the first initial assessment or postural analysis, we look at the feet, the
Do
knees,
you,
and the hip.
are you able to change that habit?
Oh, for sure. Because it's just
Really?
being aware of it. Like even for me, when I injured my ankle,
Hmm.
just going to physio and him just doing that postural analysis and looking at it, my
Hmm.
hips were off. It's kind of just like a car where you have to get your car rebalanced. The same thing with the body. Not unless that's your full occupation, is making sure your body is 100% all the time. most people, depending on their gait pattern and their life, the way they work and their job or occupation, or if they don't exercise, their body is going to be a little bit off. And so if you have a hip height because of one side being more lengthened or one side being more tight on one side, you're imbalanced. And what happens when you're imbalanced, if one hip is this high, one hip's that high, chances are there's going to be imbalance in the whole one side of your body. And then that's taking your ankles, the way your ankles, your knees, right? Your hips, your back.
So do you let people know how long it would take to correct this, or like a timeline or anything like that? Or is it all individual kind of thing?
It's hard to say because the thing is, the correction may have to be done by a physio that's does hands-on. So
Okay.
for me, like I went to a physio that did hands-on, was able to do that minute or able to do that correction with his techniques on how to correct and then show me what to do to help. And its thing is, you have to do it. It's not something a one-time fix, right? Because chances are it's what I'm doing. So if it's because I'm walking correctly, I need orthotics, or it's because something I'm doing that's making my hips go off, if I continue to do it, and it's just going to go back, right? So now it's just me being mindful. So now that I have the education that, hey, Joel, you need to sit on a sandbag on one side, or you need to stretch. More stretching is needed on a daily basis, right? Because I have very tight upper traps. So I know that I have to do that daily. Or people that have back or whatever, I tell them the foam roller, you might stretch on the foam roller, and it's not gonna be a 2-day fix.
Right.
It's something that you continually have to do every night, kind of like maybe put it beside your bed. So you do it, it's there, and you do it before you go to bed every night or every morning when you wake up.
Well, Joel, let me tell you, you've given our listeners a lot to take in, a lot of information. This is great. What can they expect in your classes? How can they reach out to you so they could be a part of what you're teaching on a regular basis?
I teach at virtual. You can catch me at foreverfitbyjolie.com. That's my website. Go there and you'll see my classes. You can also just message me at foreverfitbyjolie@gmail.com to book your privates. My privates are not on my website. And I'm also on Instagram, same name, Forever Fit by Joel. And you can see me doing some exercises. You'd have be familiar with what I do through my Instagram pages. So that's where so it's right here, Forever Fit by Joel, my name, and Joel, Jole, yes. So all in one.
Joel, I really, really appreciate you coming on the show. And everybody, just reach out to Joel. You'll definitely, if it's an injury or physical fitness goals that you have, she'll definitely help you either way. All right. You take care. Have a great one, everyone.
Bye.
Okay, I just stopped it.
Okay.